Ferrari looks set to be looking ahead to 2025 in the upcoming Las Vegas GP. It's being reported that they're going to be running test parts in this Las Vegas FP1. It looks as if they're looking at a new floor for the 2025 season. Now, this is obviously a massive, massive story, and a lot of teams will be doing similar things, and Ferrari, the big conversation is obviously coming up because of Lewis Hamilton. And obviously he's been doing a lot of experimentation for Mercedes this season. He's been put in a little bit of a cubbyhole by Mercedes, but he's doing a really good job given the caveats. Now, it's going to be really interesting to see what Ferrari are going to be able to produce next season for the 8-time world champion in Lewis Hamilton. It's going to be a really interesting scenario coming into Ferrari. And obviously, there's been a lot of talk over the course of the last week about Mercedes and Hamilton. Has Hamilton passed it? There's been a lot of talk from the likes of Jeremy Clarkson and things like that, putting out things about Lewis Hamilton. Now, I think Villeneuve has had a really good, interesting take on it. You give Lewis Hamilton a car, you know what you're going to get, but they haven't given him a car at Mercedes. It's going to be really interesting to see what does happen this upcoming weekend. But if you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell. We're trying to hit 50 subscribers by New Year, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the like button to help push this video to brand new audiences. Now, if you want a little bit more information, it comes from Italian media, where they say that Ferrari are going to be running an experimental floor on Friday at the Las Vegas GP. Ferrari are attempting to obviously bridge the gap between themselves and McLaren to try and win their first constructors title in what, 10, 11 years? It's been a long, long time. It may be even a little bit longer than that. Might be coming towards 15 to 20 years. So it's going to be interesting. Obviously, if we talk about Ferrari's updates across the course of this season, the first set were really good. The second set didn't really make much of a difference. But this latest set that they've brought up have been absolutely magnificent. Now, it looks like this weekend Max Verstappen is going to seal the deal on his championship in Las Vegas. I believe he's got to finish, as long as he finishes a position behind Norris, I believe he should win the title. Or he might need to score 3 more points. But it's something along those lines. And it's going to be really interesting to see. Now, obviously, the constructors is where a lot of the teams are focusing their money, because obviously that's where the teams get their money. And there's a big, big battle going on for that first place. Obviously, mainly between Ferrari and McLaren. But if Sergio Perez can turn it up and Max and Sergio can get a 1-2, they quickly come back into the forefront. Now, the question is, with this Ferrari experiment, what is going to happen? Obviously, there's a lot of talk about budget caps and things like that over the course of this season, last season, the season before, with obviously Red Bull being the only team to financially breach these regulations. Now, personally, I don't mind the budget cap. I think it's done in the wrong way. I think there's ways it could be improved, but I do not mind the budget cap. Now, when you look at teams like Williams, Haas, what will be Audi, currently Sauber. Obviously, there's been a lot of damage recently for those teams, especially Williams. Double DNF. A did not start for Alex Albon, a DNF for Carlo Pinto. Some big crashes as well along the way. And we talk about budget caps and things like that, and then it starts to affect the upgrades. Now, there's only one part for Ferrari. Both drivers will get to test it, both Charles and Carlos, which I think is the right thing to do. But budget cap issues mean that they're restricted on trying parts and things like that. And this is where my problem comes in. I think, in my opinion, that the budget cap needs to be a little bit bigger. I think there needs to be more money available. These teams are now turning profits. All of these teams are now worth over $1 billion, I'm fairly sure. I'm pretty sure I remember Nico Rosberg saying that he was offered to be a part of the Alpine group. Now, there's also some news about that as well, which we'll get into in a minute. Now, Ferrari obviously have had this weakness with the floor since their latest update, with porpoising and things like that. It's not been as bad as it once was in Formula 1, but it's certainly developing. And with what they brought in, I think it was around Monza, that sort of helped with that situation. But the look at this is to obviously look towards 2025 and whether that can help as well. Now, obviously, when we're talking about porpoising and bouncing and things like that. You've also got to talk about track specifications, the track layout, and how the track is set. Now, Brazil, new surfaced, the bouncing was horrific for a lot of the teams, and that's something which I think was more of a not more of a track issue than a team car issue. So this is something which we're going to have to see if that continues for some of the teams. I think if you look at the likes of Mercedes, you look at Lewis Hamilton's car, it was horrific to drive. If you've watched the onboards for Lewis and George, you wouldn't think they were driving the same team car. Like, you'd think they're polar opposites, because the car was horrific, bouncing, bobbling, you're having to yank it into the corners and like that. And you then look at George Russell, and it's like he's on a Sunday drive just turning the wheel. It is an absolute joke. Now, these things happen in Formula 1. Setups go wrong, and who is to blame? Is it the driver? Is it the team? Is it just the car? The car just can't do it. Now, these are big questions which need to be asked, and obviously, as I mentioned about Alpine, there's a big story coming out there where it looks as if, I think it was 2028, they will become Hitech, essentially. And this is interesting because I thought this was going to be the case. Obviously, Ollie Oakes, who's come in and become, is he effectively team principal or CEO? He, I believe, owns Hitech or owned Hitech. So it does not surprise me that Hitech now want to get involved. Now, losing Alpine off the grid, Renault, whatever you'd like to call them, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I think they've underperformed for many, many years. And I think if you discuss them at the moment, obviously no longer being an engine supplier, which ultimately takes away from the point of them being in Formula 1 as a works team. So they're now going to be supplied by Mercedes, and this then opens the door for buyers. I've thought for a while that they've been stripping to become a customer and then to sell. And that is what I think is going to happen. I think over the course of the next few years, they're going to go backwards and backwards and backwards. And then they're going to end up being sold off. Now, obviously, putting a really good performance in Brazil with Ocon and Gasly getting a double podium, second and third. Really, really good performance by them. And obviously, that's something which they will hopefully progress with, but I don't see them getting anywhere near the podium in Vegas. I don't see them getting anywhere near the podium again. I think they got really lucky with the weather, the red flags, the safety cars, and yes, they both drove excellent races, but they certainly need a little bit more to do, and they're certainly not quite there yet. Now, obviously, with that potential switch from Alpine to Hitech, are we going to see a bunch of changes within the team? I think yes. Obviously, you look at Briatore, who's come back in to help out with them. There's already talk that Jack Doohan's contract is only for 5 races, and Alpine are seriously considering bringing in Colapinto. But the big question around that is, how is that going to work? Because obviously, you look at Colapinto, Red Bull are interested, Alpine are interested. There's probably other teams on the grid interested as well, but it is rumoured to be that Williams want 20 million to secure his services. Now, I think that's a lot of money to secure Colapinto, who's only raced a handful of races, but he's shown that he's capable. Now, if I was Williams, if someone offers me between 10 and 20, I take it, because a team like Williams, who aren't the greatest on the financial front, obviously getting better with the loads of sponsors, but as soon as you take Colapinto out of the car, if he's not racing, they're going to lose that bunch of sponsors that they've just brought in. So it's going to be really interesting to see. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments on the Ferrari with an experimental floor. Let me know your thoughts on Hitech. Let me know your thoughts on the likes of Jack Doohan potentially being replaced after just 5 races next season with Franco Colapinto. Now, if you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell. Hit the like button as well to push this video to brand new audiences. I'll catch you in my next video.